Hi everyone, this is Muhammed, and today I'm here with
Alvaro.
Alvaro from Colombia.
Yes.
We met here in Istanbul, and today I'm meeting with him, and I thought he's a very inspiring person to tell his story to you guys, the people in the community. Alvaro, this video will be published part of the community of Arab Digital Nomads,
Amazing.
and I'm looking forward for this.
Well, nice to meet you guys. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Awesome. So I want to just make it simple at the beginning and tell who's Alvaro.
Well, I'm a nomadpreneur. A nomadpreneur is essentially a digital nomad who has his own business and travels the world at the same time that he's building his company. That's essentially who I am right now.
Awesome. So how did you start your journey as a digital nomad? Let's go back.
Wow. Well, that probably goes back to Colombian 2018. After doing some businesses as an architect and so on, things were going well, but I was not really feeling like I wanted to do that. And I decided to make a radical change. So I moved to the jungle in Colombia and I started living there. I ended up living there for 7 months. And meanwhile, I was doing that. I started participating in some small projects. Back then, the digital nomad life was not really a thing. So I was just participating in some projects in the capital of my country as I was living in the jungle, and I was trying to coordinate things on internet and trying to do things. And eventually, after 7 months, I decided to travel. I'd say you know what? I want to have this kind of lifestyle for a long time. But I didn't know how to start, and I wanted to also connect with people and to try to discover and to learn more things. I didn't have an idea of a business. I didn't have an idea of what to do. I was just very, very good at making connections and knowing people. And this is how I started with the idea of selling bracelets in $2. So these actual bracelets that you see here that say "Together we can change the world" are the bracelets that I made and printed, and I wanted to sell it.
Okay.
And yeah.
So you started selling these bracelets online?
Yeah, I started selling the bracelets not only online. I was meeting people across the countries that I was traveling to.
Physically.
And I was just telling them, hey, I'm doing this project. The project is called Together Podemos, which means Together We Can. And I want you to join me in the project. And for that, I just want $2, for this bracelet. And people were very excited. Initially, I was just traveling to 8 countries in 50 days. That was my whole journey. I was I want to travel because I want to expand my mind, right? But then after the 8th country, I actually received an invitation from my friend Valentin, who told me, you know what, you should come to tell us your story in my university. And I'm like, which university? And he's like, Harvard University.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's do it, So I had to make all my way from Mexico to Boston by road and trying to figure out how to get to Boston. That is where I was supposed to give the talk. Selling bracelets in $2. And I remember that moment when I crossed the border and I entered to migration, and the guy asked me what are you doing in the US, right? And I'm like, I'm selling bracelets. That's what I'm doing. And the guy is like, okay, why are you selling bracelets? I'm like, no, I'm going to give a talk in Harvard and so on. And so the guy is like, are you giving a talk in Harvard selling bracelets in $5, in $2? And then I'm like, yes. And then the guy looks at me and he's like, okay, and what are you doing after? I'm like, I'm traveling all the world. And this guy was like, this doesn't make sense, And then probably that's why he said you know what? I admire your honesty. Welcome to the US. And then he just let me in. And I entered. I had the luck of meeting amazing people along the way. And once I reached to Harvard, things changed, and my trip became not a trip that finished there, but a trip that expanded to traveling to every country in the world, and at the same time figuring out what to do with my life beyond selling bracelets. So this is the thing how it went. It went from Harvard, then MIT, then Berkeley, then the headquarters of Microsoft, then a lot of people. And in 1 year, I traveled to 64 countries.
Wow,
selling
in 1 year.
In 1 year. Selling these bracelets in $2.
How long you were moving between countries?
It depends. Sometimes I was 2 days in a country, sometimes I was a week, sometimes I was back then it was more the idea of connecting people around the world.
I see.
Giving the bracelets in different parts, because now the bracelets actually, what was nice is that right after that, I was not actually selling the bracelets anymore, like to person to person.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually selling bracelets to people who were like saying online on social media, like, you know what, I want to buy you 100 bracelets.
Mm-hmm.
Give it to people as you travel. I want to buy you 1,000 bracelets. I want to buy you this. And I'm like, okay, that's fantastic. So that funded my whole trip. And I wrote my first book. And this book is about that year of journey, traveling and so on. And this is when I make the decision of traveling to Africa by road, because I travel every country in Europe and North and Central America. And then I say, it would be nice to go to Africa, but to go by road. Right? And then everybody was crazy. Like my mom already was crazy when I left. She was like, why are you doing this? When I told her I'm going to travel to Africa by road, she's like, what? Why are you doing this again?
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I started in Palestine. I moved to Egypt.
Wow, you started in Palestine?
Yeah.
Wow.
I started in Palestine. Then I crossed to Egypt. Then after that, I went to Sudan, to South Sudan, to Ethiopia, to Kenya. And when I was in Kenya, I was kidnapped. And yeah, it's a crazy story.
Can you tell us the story?
It's a very crazy story. story. Oh my God, yeah.
How? What happened?
No, because I speak to everybody, you know, like I'm like this Colombian who comes and like if somebody is seated in the corner, I would just start talking with that person.
Oh, I see.
So I speak to this guy. I was going out of a conference that I was given in the Seven Others Memorial, which is a place that was built in honor of some victims of a thing that happened at some point in Africa. Mm-hmm. And there they have like this conference center. So a group of Somali women, they invited me to give a talk on entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. You know, so I went there and we were talking and so on. After the talk, I left the place and I went to a park that is nearby. And then this guy talks to me and says like, he's an architect. And so he's studied architecture. And I'm like, oh, this is exciting. I studied architecture. I'm an architect. I graduated as an architect. So I'm like, this is exciting. I want to understand more what you do, you know?
Yeah.
And then this guy starts telling me, oh yeah, of course, I can show you what I'm doing. You can come to my home and so on and so on. If in Colombia, somebody stops me, or even in Sudan, like when I was in Sudan, I was like everywhere having a lot of fun and people were inviting me to their houses, you know? So it's like, if somebody invites me to their house, I say, yeah, why not? Right? So I went to the house of this guy. We entered and 10 minutes after we entered, he locks the door like 10 minutes after we entered. Two guys came from the balcony with a knife.
Oh, no.
And yeah, took off all my clothes and everything I had and so on. And they were like asking a lot of questions. It was so crazy. And yeah, so
how did you survive this?
the story is that these guys were speaking Swahili. I understood more or less some Swahili. I'm not proficient or expert in Swahili. Wow. And back then I was even not so proficient, but I am very good with languages. So I understand very fast languages. And I understood some of the things that they were saying. So I was trying to follow up the conversation. At the same time, I was very nervous. I mean, there were a lot of things going on. And at one point, the guy took my bank card and I had $384. I remember how much money I had. $384 was all the money I had because I was selling bracelets. You remember? Yeah, so every bracelet I lose is $2. It's like that was my currency. The bracelets were my currency. So I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like giving this. So I gave this guy the card. This guy went to the ATM and he withdrew all the money. And they gave me the card empty. And then they say, what's this that I was wearing? And I said, these are bracelets. This is how I pay for my thing. So my idea in my mind was, if I survive this, I need to give these guys a bracelet so then I can, call the police and blah, blah, blah. So I was already making my plans. So I'm like, how am I going to leave this place? What am I going to do? So I started telling these guys that my parents, they were working in an embassy and that they were diplomats and so on and so on. And I don't recommend this in home because this was a lie. It's like, my parents are not diplomats or anything, but it was in my mind, what I can do, to say, I want to go. And as I was telling all these lies to these guys, this security guy comes and starts knocking the door, and probably he noticed that something was going on or something. He starts knocking the door and they say, no, nothing is happening, blah, blah. So they say between them that we need to move this guy. So they put me in a car and we went in the car. And when we were in the car, there was a construction in Nairobi and this was the expressway that was under construction. So there was a lot of traffic. Thanks to that traffic, a guy comes next. And this guy that comes next notices that I was in the middle and I started like trying to scream like help in Spanish, you know, like trying to like make signs. And the guy is like, what's going on? And I'm like, help. So the guy goes off the car and he starts asking what's going on. And then this guy is nothing. I'm like, help, yeah, I need help, blah, blah, blah. So as this was going on, I opened the door and I managed to go on these guys and I start running. So I just run in the streets of Nairobi. And this is basically, yeah. And then I walked to the place where I was staying. I have a very good sense of location. I was not that far, which is very good. So I walked to that place and I moved there and so on and so on. And thankfully my embassy helped me a lot. I recovered all my money. My friends, my people who were there in Nairobi, they helped me. They gave me money. They gave me a place. They gave me food. They invited me everywhere. Wow. They were like, really I can't believe that this happened to you, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah.
It's crazy.
But it ended up being a good experience because that helped me to make a lot of deep dives with Nairobi. And I ended up living 1.5 years in Nairobi.
Oh, wow.
But before I was living in Nairobi, I was so scared that I went to Uganda. And when I was in Uganda was when COVID started. So as COVID started, I say, okay, I don't have the bracelets anymore. I can't sell bracelets because who is going to buy me the bracelets and I'm not traveling. So I started an e-commerce. And the e-commerce was with merchandising, like these hoodies started there and all these things. Merchandising from Circolo. And it worked for the first 2 weeks, but then it didn't work anymore because everybody was with COVID, was desperate, was stressed about everything. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. And this is how I started making more videos for Instagram. Thanks to these videos, I started getting some connections with people and so on and so on. And once 6 months I was in Uganda, once these 6 months happened, I went to Nairobi. And when I was in Nairobi, everything started going so well. Initially, we started doing events. Besides the merchandise, we started doing events for cultural events for communities, essentially Latin American community in Kenya, in partnership with embassies and with corporates and with people. This became a community. Then to this community, I started offering solutions. One of the solutions that eventually we started offering were places to stay. And like one day I said, we need to connect all of this in one platform. And this is how Circolo, let's say, became like a community that connects people around the world that are digital nomads under one membership. But this has been like a process under construction, right? I didn't know anything. I didn't know technology. I didn't know things. So I learned to do some coding. I learned to do something. I learned like things along the way. And eventually I moved to Dubai. And
really? Wow.
Yeah, eventually moved to Dubai. And this is like, I mean, that's another story. It's a very long story. But eventually I moved to Dubai and it's going now. Like we've been building nice things. We have products already. We have things around the world working. We have great partnerships and things going on. And I'm very proud because this story started selling bracelets in $2 and this is where we are going.
So Circolo, the business that you have now, it started with bracelets.
Yeah.
And it moved really like dramatically.
Exactly. It's so crazy because it started with these things. You know, these things are like fabric, but very, very cheap fabric, you know, like this.
Yeah, this is like the ones that sold in festivals. Right?
Exactly, it's like a festival bracelet. Yeah. It's like, and it became.
And then it became.
This became this. Yeah, exactly. So now this is a gold bracelet. So it's it's a whole.
So our members, it's a real gold or.
Yeah. So for our members, they have 4 different tiers. So they start with a club tier, which is a bronze bracelet, copper bracelet. Then a silver one, the silver bracelet, and the gold one, which is this gold bracelet, and then the black one that we just launched. So each of the membership have a tier, and they have different types of benefits. But the whole point of the bracelet is because you see, a bracelet is something that everybody can wear. Like, it's very interesting. The concept around the bracelet is people from every background, from every career, from every position, from every status. They will wear a bracelet at some point in their life. No matter who you are, you will wear a bracelet. So we are not that different. And that's the whole point of Circolo. Circolo is born to connect people. That's why we moved from one thing and now we are in this, because our whole point is the community. Creating a community that is everywhere around the world. And we connect that community through the bracelets, right? Like this, like your stamp. But we also have an app. But we are building an app, but we also have a website. We also have in-person events, in real life events. Many things that are going on.
This is very inspiring, and yeah, it's just like crazy how this dramatic change have shifted into something really nice, and I'm glad that you survived this dramatic event that happened to you. And I'm sure you have. Is it the worst experience you have experienced through your travel?
I mean, I've experienced many things in my travels. I mean, I would say that as I mentioned before, I am a nomadpreneur, right? So as entrepreneurs, we face a lot of things, like especially because people with a traditional mindset, they will not understand why you don't have a place that you call your home permanently, or they will think that you are not serious when you are moving so much around the world, or they will have difficulties to understand you. So I think that the biggest of the challenges that I've faced as I'm traveling as an entrepreneur is that people will always like to see you with one office in one place, registered somewhere.
Yes.
And you are not that, so that makes or that made before the funding harder, or the connecting with people harder, or like making a space or creating a space for you in the ecosystem harder. Not anymore, because thankfully we have now like more tools, and we are now more known, and like we have the reputation. But before, it used to be a challenge to have so many things regarding credibility, and that was very exhausting. Because imagine you are already struggling or handling your travels, you are handling your food, you are handling your things, and now you need to add the thing of like, okay, I need to run a business, and I need to get funds for this, and I need to pay the people.
Yes,
it's crazy, but it's nice. I really enjoy it.
All right. Wow. This is a very inspiring story, and that you have started from this and have reached a point where it's more like a lifestyle that I think many of people who are watching this want to follow. So I want to talk more about your business. So since you have came through many different like journeys through the business, from selling bracelets towards like shifting it into like a more of a digital nomad community that you are offering a lot of services. So can you maybe like tell us how did you shift it from this to this, and what is the steps that maybe like practical steps that you have taken into achieving that? Maybe like tips that you have you can share.
Wow, one of the things that I would say is that being a digital nomad, or like being a remote worker, it's a challenge that to overcome it, like you need to be very organized. Like at least that's what works for me, to be honest. Like people understand, or people may think sometimes that if you are traveling, you don't have an agenda, or you don't have things, or you are not like, you don't schedule things. And so it's the opposite. In my case, it's super opposite. Like I have a whole schedule, and I plan my day to zero to Z. That's the only way how I can manage my travels, right? And essentially because I also don't want to fall into stereotypes. I remember having this conversation with someone telling me that if you are a digital nomad, if you are a remote worker, your productivity is lower because you are always traveling, trying to discover places and so on and so on. And that's why many people will not hire a remote worker or a digital nomad, because they will think that they are not as productive as other people. So personally, I think that is a myth. It's not always true. And whoever is lazy is going to be lazy whether if they have a normal or a remote job. Like they are not lazy because they are working remotely.
Doesn't matter.
They are lazy because they are lazy. You know what I mean? So in order to fight against that stereotype, I tend to be very organized. So I divide my day in blocks. I use something called the Pomodoro technique, which is essentially dividing your day in blocks and like making sure that you work in sprints. So I have sprints depending on the type of thing I have to do. I have from sprints that are 1 to 1.5 hour meetings, or I have that are essentially for working in Circolo, working in things that I need to do technically or that I need to do work-wise and things like that. Or I have sprints that are like only for having meetings. So all my meetings are organized in a block and they are maximum half an hour, and that's everything. Because otherwise, after half an hour, what are you talking about? Like it's like we already talked about everything. So people start going around and around and around. And then I have as well, like organized personally, what works for me is I organize my social life. So I know when I'm going, for example, to hang out with people, or when I'm going to have iftar these days that we have been fasting, or when I'm going to the gym. That's very important for me. Even during Ramadan, I go to the gym, and that's like a thing that I know that not everybody takes this challenge, but to me it's just important to stay with certain structure because, for example, at least physical activity helps me feel in home, essentially because I'm changing destinations every month, every 3 months, every other time. And changing so much destinations, I think that it's important to have one activity that keeps you with the feeling that you are in home. You know what I mean? And that for me is sports. It's like working out, doing some activities. And yeah, like the time for discovering, the time for doing sightseeing or doing city walks or doing things, that also is a schedule in my time. So for me, it's organization that I would say are the steps.
You just do the time blocking for everything, basically.
Everything, exactly.
Yeah. This is a very good tip.
Yeah, and then like I do 3 months in advance. That's also another thing. It's I know that it's hard to imagine, but
So you plan 3 months in advance?
Yeah. Okay. So I will divide my schedule in blocks. So I say 3 months in advance, I know blocks. Why? Because every goal I have are like everybody has like 3 years goals, then every like yearly goal, and then what I do is like my 3 years goal, I divide it in years, and then I divide it in semesters, and then I divide it in trimesters. And this I divide it in months, and then I divide it in weeks, and then I divide it in days, and that's why I have the blocks. So I say 3 months in advance is because I have that one goal that in these 3 months I want to achieve. So I divide my day in blocks that help me with that. So this is not a specific, it's only 3 months, and I say in these 3 months in the mornings I'm going to work, for example. Then in the afternoons I'm going to the gym, then in the evenings I'm going to have meetings, is an example. But then what I do is every week I sit and I say, okay, this is the block that I have available, it's like a canvas. Right? So now based on this block, I will put this here, this here, this here, this here. I'm meeting this friend, I'm going for dinner to this house, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do this thing. That way I can manage to do many activities and I will feel that I'm achieving my goals. And I will not feel like stressed or overwhelmed because maybe I'm wasting my time or anything. Now I feel like I'm happy and I can dedicate time to everything with the right amount of time while I'm still happy at the same time.
Cool. That's very, very cool tip. Yeah, I agree with you. This method is similar to like they call it dividing the big stones into like medium and then small stones.
Yeah.
Very similar way. And yeah, this is a great tip. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
No, thank you.
I want to ask you about, let's jump back to your business and like many people who are trying to be like, opening businesses online, they have this issue of making things like more, let's say they want to open a business, but they have this payment gateway problem, technical problem. So you have now 25 team members, as I remember.
In my company, yes.
Your company. So let's go like maybe between phases of your company start. So how did you start your company? And then how did you scale up that?
Wow. I think that like many other companies, I started like as a solopreneur, right? And let's say from the garage. In my case, my garage, I always tell people my garage is my suitcase. You know what I mean? It's like, I've been upgrading that backpack like so many times. Like it's my backpack was like this. I showed you the backpack. Do you remember? Like it was like this backpack with everything there, 3 t-shirts laptop, and like my laptop, all the things. That's my garage. Like everybody has a garage. My garage is my backpack. Right? So then that backpack was upgraded. So then I have a bigger backpack. Then I had a fancy suitcase. Then I have this amazing suitcase that is like the one that I have now that is resistant to 1,000 pounds of weight and whatever thing it's, and it's like that garage is being upgraded. And the reason why it's been like that is because I think that it's important to always keep in mind, like before talking about scaling up and so on, to keep in mind like what's that thing that will keep you grounded, you know what I mean? Or that will keep you like with your feet on the earth. Like, and one thing I always tell people is like, personally, like many entrepreneurs, I have amazing and big dreams, and I'm super confident that I'm going to achieve each one of them. Like I'm super confident about that. And at the same time, I also keep something in my life that helps me realize how I started. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm full of those things. Like, for example, the 2 bracelets in the same hand, like the one how it started, the one how it's going. Like, for example, having a suitcase. The reason why it's important is because I'm a nomadpreneur. So having a suitcase that helps me realize how I started and where things are going right now helps me say like, okay, in the moment when I'm not feeling that great, it will help me say, you know what? you started with this small backpack that was almost destroyed, you know what I mean? And now you can have this bag. Like, what's the privilege of that, right? And like that, like having that upgrades or having that things in your life will keep you grounded to now being able to come to your business with a perspective of a student. And that's another thing I tried to do. I had this phase in which I wanted to do everything in the right way. And I'm like, I want to do the things right. I want to do things right all the time, wanting to do things right. And when something bad happened or when something I was not expecting happen, I would feel sad or I would feel annoyed or I would feel overwhelmed and I would waste time. Because I was feeling sad in the process of going through all that sadness and all these things. I would already lost 3 days of my day, 3 days of my week, or 1 full day of work or things like that. And I would just say, to me, the process or the learning curve is better when you come from the perspective of a student. You say, it's fine. It's fine if this exam, you didn't have the A+, you know what I mean? Probably you have a bad note and it's fine. You can have a bad note, that's allowed. You are an entrepreneur, you are discovering the world. You are discovering also about yourself because you are traveling, adapting to countries, adapting to the water of a place, all these things. So a perspective of a student helps you to be flexible and to say, fine, this didn't go well. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. And then for now, like growing your team is similar because I have members of my team who I try to work with. Some of them were or are super awesome people, but we didn't match. And you know, one of the hardest things for us is to actually like let somebody go and like tell somebody, you know what, we are not a match.
How do you discover this, like that you didn't match with a person?
Well, it was after a lot of practice, but what I would say right now, for you to make it shorter and to not go through that whole thing, is like try to always identify your core values if you share the same.
I see.
Second, I ask the person, I always ask the people, what's your biggest dream? Right? And then that person will tell me, my biggest dream is, I don't know, to travel to Cappadocia. Right? And I'm like, okay, my company, it's in the position of helping you making that dream happen. Or my company is not going to take you there. You know what I mean?
I see.
An ideal learning process or an ideal working relationship for me should be a relationship whereas the people who I'm working with can feel that they are also making their dreams come true. And that the company is going to give them not only the money, but also the tools, but also the resources, also the connections, the people, everything they need to make that dream happen. It's not the same to make the dream happen only because of you have money, than making the dream happen because you feel that you have support. Having support is the best thing in the world.
Definitely.
And what I try to do in order to identify the best teammates is making sure that my company can support them to make the dreams come true.
This is very cool. The mindset. Yeah, I love it.
Thank you. If I think that I will not do that, I don't work with them.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know what I mean? Because it's not like when you are friends with someone. When you are friends with someone, it's a very, let's say, easygoing relationship where there is no interest, but like building something, like helping each other at some point, or like being there, right? Like it's been there. Like you are friends, it's fine, you are there. But you are working together. You have a relationship with someone. Like a love relationship with someone, or you have like a personal connection with somebody, that immediately like goes or lies under, let's say, a function that this person is playing in your life. And this person should be able to provide you things you need, and you should be able to provide them things they need because you are supporting each other. So our way in the business to support people who we work with is making sure that we help them to find or to get to their potential and to get to that point in life where they want to be. And that's for the talent acquisition, and that comes then with the scalability. So for the scalability is very easy for me now. Before it was not, but to me now it's just simplified. I remember I had this structure in my mind initially about the company that was based in having this amount of people here, this thing there, this thing there, this thing there. And then thanks to simplification, we got from a structure that will have like a lot of teammates like playing a role, but not having real activities. Actually, I made that mistake sometimes in which I will hire someone, and then I was excited because I wanted to open a country, but then that person, they they didn't really have a lot of things to do, you know what I mean? So it's like you will be there trying to throw them something, but they don't really have time. Or they have time, but they don't really have any task, any ability. So what am I doing now? Well, I don't know. I need you to think. What can you do now? You know what I mean?
Sometimes you need to hire the person who can just do it themselves, because
it's correct.
As a person who's running the business, you don't have time to deal with everyone.
To tell everybody what to do. And this is why it's important that the company matches their dreams and it's not only paying them money.
Definitely.
But then that the company, it's giving them an environment where they feel that they are challenged and that they feel that they will create something new, that they need to do something that never done before, that this gives a sense of purpose. And that's very important. For scaling, I think that one of the most important things, like for me at least, is making sure that the business is going in a direction that not only solves people's needs, because in the end your product should ideally solve something, but and at the same time, besides solving some like people's needs, it's something that connects people on a deeper way. Today, what really matters is not your product but your community. That's what's important. So if you create something that connects people, that makes people feel happy, that makes people feel they belong somewhere, you are creating something that will last for long and not only for one day.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with you. Having communities is like what make us as digital nomads. You know, like I heard this saying that digital nomads travel or visit the country for the community that it has.
Yeah,
meet people, connect with them, build relationships.
Totally.
Yeah, this is very cool. So I'm wondering about where is Circolo now? What are you doing now? And can you give us like an idea, rough idea on business-wise? What's your revenue? Like, what are you doing? Like, you don't need to share exact numbers, just like to have a clear idea so everyone can maybe potentially dream of having something like that, or
So we are right now going on the way of onboarding 5,000 members in our community. Each of our members, they pay different things according to the tier they have. As I explained you, they pay a basic membership that is only $140 for starting. But if they want to have like an actual comprehensive service, they can pay up to $10,000 a month, but they will get access to everything. They don't need to pay any extra. They don't need to pay for a rent. They don't need to pay anything. They even have a private chauffeur if you're paying $10,000. Then if you're paying $4,000, you have everything. You have your house, you have an insurance, you have discounts in flights in every airway in the world. You also have access to more than 30,000 gyms, more than 4,000 co-working spaces in 120 countries. And access to communities worldwide of people where you can like just connect, come there and say, hey, how are you, what's up? And then these people are going to be like-minded, right? People like you and so on, and events, a network of events. And then if you pay $1,100, you get access to the same things roughly, except that some of the things are not fully covered but discounted. And instead of having access to apartments that are two-bedroom apartments like the one that we are right now at, you have access to co-livings or to like rooms in places. Now, in terms of what we are doing right now, we are expanding. We are opening new markets. So this is why I travel so much. Actually, my mission is to go and curate places and opening new destinations, connect with the people, leave like the seed planted, right? There in the place. So in the next year until February 2025, I'm going to be traveling to 52 more countries. I've been already to 81. So it's like to 52 more countries. And by the end of 2026, we are hoping to be already traveled to 196 countries, which is the total amount of countries in the world. And that's, let's say, one of the missions of what we are doing right now. The reason why we are doing right now is because we want to connect with communities, to expand with people, to connect with people in a different way, and to open services in different destinations that can be comprehensive and that can like connect people in a different way. This year we also started doing expeditions. So one thing that happened is that we noticed that digital nomads are, of course, not the only ones in the space, and we have the remote workers. They are working mainly from home, and they want to have some experiences that can like help them vent, because probably they don't work. They are not digital nomads, but they can work remotely. So, but they don't want to be traveling the whole year, probably, right?
They want to just go join
Yeah.
the trip, connect with people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have three kinds of experiences. One that is in the city. This is one of the IRL like experiences. That is essentially a dinner. So this is a dinner where you will go and you will learn about the gastronomy of a country, particular country. So we'll bring the chef to give you a master class and to tell you, and then you connect with people around the same table and you talk with them and you exchange with them. The second one, it's experience like normally a weekend. Here in Turkey, for example, we have one next weekend that is in Cappadocia. So we are going together there and we are living a weekend together, like traveling, like also connecting. So you're having some talks, like to teach you some things during the whole experience. And then the other one, it's a 15-day trip that we take with 50 people. So we always take 50 people. Then we receive applicants, and then we make a nice group of 50 people. So during these 15 days, you meet other 49 people who are like super amazing entrepreneurs and who will match your vibe. So we do it either in partnership with communities or we do it individually. The one that we have in Colombia in July is in partnership with ArtsDAO, which is the largest Web3 community for digital collectibles in the Middle East. And we are traveling together to Colombia. In Colombia, we visit Bogotá, Medellin, and Cartagena and have amazing connections with government, with organizations, with people who are also digital nomads and artists and so on. And like that, we have another one to Kenya in September, and to the Middle East, which is Bahrain, Oman, and the UAE in November. So
interesting.
This is where we are as a company at. My mission or my idea is to have a community. So far, the first goal we have, or the first milestone that we want to achieve, is to have a community of 1 million people. Right? In general, we want to be 1 million people to impact more than 5 million businesses. This is having partners that are actually benefited from what we do, to have 100,000 co-workers and to connect with people who are creating or bringing change to communities to impact more than 5 million lives. That's our approach to how we want to make things. One thing that I didn't mention is that when you get the membership, you also plant trees. So we are now in this mission, like everything is 1 million or 5 million, so 5 million trees. The next year is the years of the 5 million, and this is like where we are at right now and how we are going.
Amazing! Wow, that's a lot of things going on. Yeah, I loved it. Thank you a lot for sharing, thank you for making this happen, making this interview.
I'm so happy.
I'm so happy to talk to you. And would you like to add something before we wrap this up?
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for inviting me. And what I can tell you guys is I understand that when we are traveling, the world might seem a little bit scary and a little bit too big, especially because if we come from a different culture than the Western culture or another cultures, it's like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to eat? Where am I going to pray? What am I going to experience? And how am I going to do things? But like your praying rock, you can take in your bag always. Like it's something that you can get in your bag. You can always meet amazing people. Once you are connected with the community, you will always find people who will support you and who will like be there for you. And like being open-minded is a state of mind that you can always adopt to try to absorb things from another cultures and to learn new things about yourself, to be more productive, to go to more places and to discover more destinations. So if you want to try this lifestyle, I will really, really, really recommend you to do it, because it's amazing to be a digital nomad, and to do these things is how the world is going to work in the future.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And how can people reach you?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Daza. It's ALVDAZ. You can also follow our Instagram for my company, Circolo.life. Or like you can write me on WhatsApp. Like I made a decision, like my WhatsApp, my Instagram, and all social media I have are public. Because again, like it's a community, right? So we are all together. There's no difference. We are connected. And I'm super happy to talk.
Love it. Thank you very much. Yeah, I will leave all your links in the description. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah.
Bye.